The wind howled as it swept through the darkened forest, its mournful cry rising and falling like the wail of some ancient spirit. The moon was little more than a sliver in the sky, offering no warmth, only casting an unsettling silver light across the landscape. The village, nestled at the edge of these woods, had always been quiet, peaceful, yet its tranquility held a heavy, unspoken secret. People rarely spoke of it, but for generations, the townsfolk knew that the forest was sacred, and no one ventured near its heart. Victor Marlowe had arrived in this village only a week ago, eager to escape the clamor of city life and to find solace in the simplicity of rural existence. But from the moment he stepped onto the quiet cobblestone streets, he felt the weight of something unseen. It wasn't just the chill of the wind or the hush of the trees, but something deeper, something ancient. The villagers seemed to avoid him, their eyes darting away when he greeted them, as though afraid to make direct contact. One evening, after a particularly disturbing dream, Victor ventured to the local tavern. He took a seat near the fire, hoping to hear some local gossip, but the murmurs of conversation quickly died as he entered. The only one to acknowledge him was an old man in the corner, his face shrouded by the deep folds of age. The man's eyes were sharp, alert, too alert. He motioned for Victor to join him. "I know why you've come," the man said, his voice a low rasp. "You've come seeking knowledge, but knowledge, lad, is a dangerous thing in these parts." Victor raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean? I've only come to study the history of the land." The old man leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The land is cursed, and the price of knowledge is high. There are rituals here, old rituals, rituals that should never have been disturbed." Victor's curiosity piqued, and he asked, "What kind of rituals?" The man hesitated before answering, his eyes darting around nervously. "Rituals to summon things, dark things. They pay the price for power. But the price, young man, is a soul." Victor stood up, his pulse racing with both excitement and unease. "What do you mean? Is this some sort of local legend?" The old man's eyes bored into Victor's with a terrifying certainty. "I was there once, and now the forest is calling again." Victor's heart raced as he left the tavern. He didn't fully understand what the man meant, but his curiosity had been stirred. Little did he know, the village's darkest secrets were far more than mere stories. They were waiting to be unearthed. The following day, Victor could not shake the old man's warning from his mind. The images of dark rituals, of things summoned from the depths of the earth, plagued his thoughts. He found himself drawn to the village library, a quaint building that smelled of old parchment and dust. The librarian, an unassuming middle-aged woman, eyed him with suspicion as he walked in. "Can I help you, sir?" she asked, her tone curt. Victor smiled, trying to seem casual. "Yes, I'm interested in the history of the area. Specifically, I've heard some old stories about rituals performed in the forest." The librarian's face faltered for a moment, her lips pressing together as though she were deciding how much to reveal. Finally, she spoke. "Those are just stories," she said with a dismissive wave. "Nothing more." But Victor was persistent. "Could you show me any records or books about the rituals? I'm a scholar. I'm interested in understanding the local folklore." The librarian hesitated. Then, with resigned sigh, she led him to a back room filled with ancient books. She handed him a thick leather-bound tome that seemed to pulse with an eerie energy of its own. "Read it at your own peril," she warned before walking away. Victor opened the book, flipping through pages filled with arcane symbols and descriptions of long-forgotten rituals. One particular passage caught his eye, detailing the ritual of summoning a demon. It spoke of an ancient ceremony performed during the darkest nights, where a blood sacrifice would bind the demon to the land, granting power in exchange for the soul of the sacrifice. The more Victor read, the more the words seemed to come alive on the page. A sense of dread began to settle deep in his chest, but his curiosity refused to let him stop. He had to know more. Later that afternoon, Victor made his way into the heart of the forest. He had studied the map in the book, and it seemed that the site of the ritual was located deep within the woods, where the trees grew thick and twisted. The air grew heavier as he ventured further, the oppressive silence of the forest pressing in around him. Every step seemed to draw him closer to something ancient and terrible. As he reached the clearing described in the book, he stopped in his tracks. In the center of the clearing stood a stone altar, covered in dark stains that could only be blood. The ground was marked with strange symbols, their meaning lost to time. A chill ran through him as he realized that this very place, was where the ritual had been performed. Before he could examine it further, a rustling noise behind him made him spin around. From the shadows emerged the old man from the tavern, his face grim. "You shouldn't be here," the man warned, his voice low and urgent. "You've gone too far. The ritual is not something to be trifled with." Victor's heart raced. "What do you know about this place? About the rituals?" The old man stepped forward, his eyes filled with a kind of regret. "I know more than I wish to. I was part of it once, and now the demon is waking again." Victor stared at the old man in disbelief. "What do you mean? What demon?" The old man's face darkened. "The one you sought, the one you have disturbed." Victor's mind raced as he tried to process the old man's words. "The demon is waking," he repeated, the question hanging in the air like a dark omen. His chest tightened with a mix of fear and exhilaration. He had been so close, so sure, that he was on the edge of some great discovery. Now, in the face of the old man's dire warning, the gravity of his actions began to sink in. The old man's face had turned pale, his hands shaking slightly as he grasped the edge of the stone altar. "You don't understand what you've done. By coming here, you've disturbed the balance. The ritual isn't just a myth, it's real. It's what binds this place together. And now that it's been disrupted, it's only a matter of time before the demon returns." Victor's voice trembled despite himself. "But I only wanted to understand. I didn't mean to interfere with anything. You should have never come," the old man interrupted, his tone sharp. "The villagers warned me of your arrival. They sensed your curiosity, and they knew you'd find your way here eventually. The ritual calls to those who seek knowledge, and it does not let them go once it has marked them." Victor swallowed hard. He had always prided himself on his intellectual curiosity, his desire to uncover the unknown. But now, standing before this altar, surrounded by the shadows of the forest, that curiosity felt like a curse. "What happens now?" Victor asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The old man looked around nervously, as though expecting something to emerge from the darkness at any moment. "Now, the ritual must be completed," he said gravely. The demon cannot be kept bound forever. Once disturbed, it demands its due. A sacrifice must be made to restore the balance. Victor's heart hammered in his chest. A sacrifice? Who? Who must be sacrificed? The old man hesitated, his gaze flickering to Victor's eyes. The one who has awakened it, he murmured. That's you, Victor. Victor took a step back, his eyes widening in disbelief. What are you saying? You want me to? I don't want it, the old man replied bitterly. But it's the only way to stop it. You're the one who disturbed the ritual. And now, the demon demands its payment. You must offer yourself as the sacrifice, before it's too late. Victor's legs felt weak as he stumbled backward. I can't do that. I didn't know. I didn't understand. The old man's face twisted with regret. Neither did I, when I was in your place. But I was young, full of ambition, and now I live with the consequences. You think you can escape this, but there is no escape. Not for you, not for any of us. A growl, low and guttural, echoed through the trees, making Victor freeze in place. The forest seemed to come alive around him, the air thick with an unnatural tension. The demon's presence was already there, lingering at the edges of his mind, waiting for the inevitable. Victor felt a wave of panic rise in his chest. How do I stop it? Is there any way to... The old man shook his head, his face grim. There is no stopping it, only appeasing it. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet trembled, and the very air seemed to shift. A deep, resonant voice, low and haunting, filled the clearing. Your soul is required, and it will be mine. Victor turned toward the voice, his body frozen with terror. The figure that emerged from the shadows was no mere creature. It was something ancient, something beyond comprehension. Its eyes glowed with an eerie fire, its form indistinct but suffused with a terrible power. Victor's heart raced, and he realized, with chilling clarity, that there was no way out. He had uncovered the truth, and now he would pay the price. The demon's eyes flickered with a malevolent gleam as it advanced toward Victor. The very air seemed to grow colder, and the shadows around him deepened. His body trembled, but his mind refused to surrender to the overwhelmed terror. He had spent so long seeking knowledge, thinking that if he only understood the past, he could control the present. But now, faced with the reality of what he had unleashed, he realized how little he actually understood. Your soul will complete the circle, the demon intoned, its voice as ancient as the earth itself, reverberating through Victor's bones. Your foolishness has bound you to me, and I will claim what is mine. Victor's legs buckled beneath him, but he forced himself to stand, trembling, trying to make sense of everything. The old man beside him had fallen silent, his face drawn and pale, as though he too had long ago resigned himself to the inevitability of this moment. The forest around them seemed to close in, the trees bending unnaturally toward the altar. The ground felt alive, as if the very earth was stirring in anticipation. No, Victor said through clenched teeth. His voice was weak, but there was defiance in it. I won't let you take me. The demon paused, its unblinking gaze focused on him. You do not have a choice, mortal. You are mine. You always have been. Victor's mind raced, scrambling for a way out. He knew that if he succumbed to fear, he would lose everything. His life, his sanity, and his soul. And yet, despite the demon's certainty, a flicker of defiance burned in him. He had come this far. Could he truly let everything go so easily? The old man, watching silently, spoke up. "There is one way," he said, his voice barely a whisper, laden with regret. "But it will cost you even more than you've already given." Victor turned to him, desperate. "What is it? I'll do anything." The old man hesitated, glancing at the demon warily. "The ritual can be reversed, but not without a terrible price. To break the bond, you must offer something greater than your life, your very essence, your will to live. You must surrender yourself entirely, become part of the earth, part of the forest. Your body will never leave this place, but your soul will be freed." Victor's heart pounded in his chest. The price seemed unbearable. "So, I would become part of this place? Trapped here forever?" The old man nodded solemnly. "It's the only way. It's the only way to sever the demon's claim on you." Victor looked back at the demon, whose form seemed to ripple with impatience. Time was running out. The choice weighed heavily on him. His life, his freedom, all slipping away with every passing moment. With a deep breath, Victor made his decision. "I will do it," he said, his voice steady, despite the fear clawing at his insides. "I will break the bond." The demon laughed, the sound echoing through the clearing like 1,000 screams. "Foolish mortal," it hissed, "you cannot escape me. You belong to me." Victor stepped forward, his hands trembling as he reached for the ancient symbols carved into the stone altar. The old man stood back, watching with a mixture of awe and sorrow. As Victor began to speak the words of the reversal, the demon roared in fury. But despite its efforts to stop him, the words flowed from Victor's mouth with a strange certainty, as if they were not his own. The ritual was unfolding, but it was no longer the demon's will that controlled it. The air thickened, and the ground began to tremble. The trees around them seemed to shake with life, their roots twisting and turning as if awakening from a long slumber. The clearing was consumed by a blinding light as the ritual reached its apex. Then, as the final words left Victor's lips, the demon let out one final deafening scream. And then, silence. Victor felt the world around him shift. He could no longer see the demon. He could no longer feel the weight of its presence. The forest seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, and the air grew lighter, warmer. He had done it. He had broken the bond. But the price was steep. As the ritual concluded, Victor felt his body begin to fade, his connection to the world slipping away. The forest had claimed him, as the old man had warned. He could no longer walk in the world of the living, but at least his soul was free. The old man stepped forward, his eyes filled with sorrow. "I'm sorry, Victor, but you saved us all." And with that, Victor's form dissolved into the earth, becoming one with the forest that had always been its true master. The ritual was complete.